Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. You are now joining Kelsey Moreira on the guest list. Kelsey,
Nice.
got it. Kelsey is a Shark Tank, Forbes 30 under 30, and Vegas 40 under 40 alumni. She is the founder and fearless leader of Doughp, which creates legit cookie dough. I had the opportunity to try out the red velvet cupcake, and it was an amazing experience. So, Kelsey, thank you for coming on here.
Oh, that's good. I'm really impressed. That was a hard flavor to get your hands on. We sold out of it in like the first 48 hours that it was live, but it's back now. So I'm glad you got a pint.
Yeah, it was really recently. It was good. And the experience around it reminded me of like ice cream, but it wasn't like as creamy, and gives me kind of that nostalgia feel from back when we're growing up and trying to sneak into the fridge and scoop out some cookie dough, and your parents are yelling at you because you're going to die from eating it.
Exactly. It was like, it's delicious and awesome like that, but no one's yelling at you. So you can have as much as you want. And it is all just cookie dough. So it's like served like ice cream. You know, you're eating it with a spoon out of a pint or something, and devouring perhaps the whole pint in one sitting, which is fine. But yeah, it won't melt. It's not like ice cream. It's not going to melt on you. And, you know, cookie dough ice cream, you're always like digging for those little nuggets. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we just need to eat a pint of cookie dough. Why are we struggling to find these little baby nuggets in here? So now you just have a whole pint of it.
Yeah, it was amazing. So to get off to start, I want to dive a little bit deeper. I know we've only known each other for a few minutes, but we have something in common outside of both being in Vegas and having mutual connections. I'm also on a sobriety journey. I've been sober now about 3 years, and I saw on your website and from some of the conversations that I've listened to that you're very upfront about your sobriety journey. It's been about 5 years, so I'm just really curious on the story behind it and the mission and the partnerships that you've installed into the business going forward.
Yeah, so cool. Well, congrats on 3 years. Yeah, it just passed 5, and it's like, it's crazy. I feel like after the 1 year birthday, it just like time flies, you know, and you're remembering it all. So it's really cool. Yeah, I love meeting other sober people who have kind of like unlocked this superpower, I like to call it. You know, it's like you have all this extra energy inside and like focus and excitement for the world. And alcohol was just really blurring all that, you know. It just made like you just go through the motions. And for me, I started working in tech when I was 16 years old. So I kind of jumped into this really intense life at a young age and wanted to be cool and wanted to be hip. But like, I loved what I was doing at work, and I was getting straight A's. And I had this really weird contrast in life, wanting to pull into what I thought like society thought was cool and awesome with, you know, drinking. And it was always to excess for me. I just couldn't control myself. I always wanted to be the life of the party. And, you know, I can't drink as much as a 6'5", you know, 280-pound dude in college. And I would do it if we just have very different end results. And I was the one that was waking up in the hospital or with a ticket from the police and, you know, being explained what I did the night before constantly. And I finally hit a point in 2015, you know, a few years after college, and like these things were still happening. And I still had my great job at Intel, but I was doing these just silly things, and had one last hurrah on a work trip in Barcelona, and was just like, I am done. I never want to feel like this again, both in the hangover I was experiencing, which was horrendous. I didn't know where I was. It was like 3:30 in the morning in Barcelona, and the actions I was doing. You know, I had cheated on a boyfriend of 4 years, blown up that relationship. And I really just had this quick realization that like, it's any relationship. It's with myself or with any person in the future, with my family, like what I've put them through over all these years, being crazy worried about me. Like every weekend was like, all right, like, let's see where Kelsey is, or like what happens, or she lost her phone or hurt herself or whatever. So I just said, enough's enough. And I found an English speaking AA meeting in Barcelona that morning, and now haven't had a drink since. So like you mentioned with the company, I'm pretty open about it. And I love recovering out loud, being able to share it and show other people who are maybe where I was 5 years ago or before or after, that like there's a chance for you to shake up your life and go do something different. So Doughp is all about breaking the stigma around mental health and addiction recovery.
Yeah, especially out here in Vegas, because it's like alcohol is just so ingrained into society, and it's hyper normalized. I come from a nightclub background. I was working at Omnia the last 6 years, and it's so easy to just slip away into this culture. I also went to UNLV, and I was drinking for about 10 years. I called it a decade of debauchery. So it was crazy times. I was in a fraternity and everything, but it was also similar to you. It was about 2 years after I graduated from college, and I just didn't like where things were going. I was spending a lot of money. I was making a fool of myself, lots of blackouts. And at some point, it was just like, if I ever want to be successful, this style is going to have to change. My life is going to have to change. And, I did go to some AA meetings. I went and got some help from some friends and had some intervention style conversations, and friends that were like, I believe in you. I know you can do things and change your life, and change the way that people see you, but you have to dig deep internally and figure out what it is that you want, because we all know you're going to be great, but this route that you're going is just very self-destructive.
Yeah. It's like the thing you said about society kind of normalizing it, and hyper-focused in Vegas, of course, was like, that's what everyone comes here for. I literally didn't know that people lived in Vegas. I had come here so many times in college, and I genuinely don't think I knew that there were houses outside of the Strip, except maybe like people who worked there had to live somewhere. But I thought, couldn't be like normal people live there. It's just a party city. And, it is so much of the culture here, but everywhere. I was in Arizona for college. I was in Oregon just after, Intel had moved me around to their different locations, and then in San Francisco. And no matter where I went, like being in your early 20s, mid 20s was the only way you knew how to hang out with friends was drinking. And I mean, in Oregon, like the brewery tours and everything, it's like, I didn't know what to do. Like if I was going to hang out with someone, or God forbid, go on a date or something, I'm like, what if we can't go for drinks? Like, what is someone going to do? Like, they're going to take me to a roller rink or something. Like, I just couldn't believe that there could be activities that didn't include alcohol. And that's on society. That's just how we all see things, and how we're all going through the world, that like, that's the only way you can get together or relax after a hard day or celebrate after a good day. And I just feel really empowered in sobriety that like you get to find new ways to celebrate and new ways to go through emotions and really feel them. It's a much like healthier way to be in tune with how you're doing, and not just like breeze through the good and the bad.
I would say the first maybe 3 months of being sober, there were a lot of emotions that like surfaced that I hadn't experienced in a long time. I remember there was a movie that I was watching, and at the end I started like tearing up, and I was like, this has never happened to me before. I was like, man, were those emotions like really that suppressed? And now I even get like a little emotional when I watch some of these movies, and it's just like, it's so funny. It's a beautiful feeling, because we are human, and we shouldn't have these suppressed because of substances or whatever, however society dictates between, men and women, and how you should pronounce yourself. It's like, just be who you are. And once you get past those few months of the sleep adjustment was really tough, but there was just like this immense amount of energy and like hyper focused. And so I ended up going and creating like a few businesses before the podcast, but it was just like, wow, like I'd forgotten what it was like to be sober. Yeah,
that's so awesome. It's funny what a similar path we took. I think we were probably right about the same age, because I was, I think 2 years out of college as well. And then also within 3 months of getting sober, I had started my little bakery. I had like a part-time bakery in Oregon, because I like loved being in the kitchen. I was baking nights and weekends, and starting to bring in like cupcakes and cakes to the office. And it's like, you just have so much more energy in not being hungover, and just what alcohol does to your overall body, where like, if you have some free time while you're still kind of in the throes of it drinking, you just like want to sit around, or like, or go to the bar and sit around. And it just, you didn't have as much time to like think about what you were passionate about or what you like to do. So same, like you said, you started 3 businesses. It was like right off the bat, like, oh, let me make this like little bakery and see what I can do. And then of course, getting moved down to San Francisco, I put the bakery on hold, and it wasn't long till I had this idea for Doughp and quit my job, and the rest is history.
Yeah. It's such a dope name. Like
Thank you.
It's incredible. So was that bakery, did that give you some of the ideas to start Doughp? Was that like kind of like the breeding test ground?
Certainly on like what it's like to be an entrepreneur or like what it's like to create a brand. You know, it was called Monster Baby Bakery. Monster Baby was my nickname with my family, still is. My dad yells monster across the grocery store or something if I'm with him. So he, you know, that name has stuck for me being such a messy eater as a kid. And so when I cook or bake, it's like the same thing. Like, you know, that I just made something delicious. If the kitchen looks like a bomb went off, it's like destroyed. So Monster Baby Bakery, I like had a blast, like made the website, was doing all the photography. I had made a makeshift photo box out of like a cardboard box, you know, lined with poster board, and was doing like photos with my iPhone at the time, which like they're a lot better than they were 5 years ago. But I just loved it. I definitely felt that like energy and passion and excitement to create something. I really love marketing. Like as a kid, and it's kind of why I went into product marketing with Intel. And going that path was like, I was always analyzing commercials and like, I was like, oh, it's really interesting that they're playing like this commercial at this time or on this channel, and like starting to think about like customer demographics. But I'm like 10, you know, talking about this stuff to my dad. He's like, I don't know, like you should, yeah, maybe we should get you in like a marketing course or something. So I always really loved it. And I think doing that for your own brand was just exciting for me, like create a social media account for it. And, you know, I just loved it. I love seeing people enjoy something that I've made. And now with Doughp, it's like, it was very one-to-one with the bakery, right? I got to see like, I just walked this cake to you and I spent 8 hours making it yesterday. So like, it was so fun to watch those direct reactions. But now it's like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of photos like every week that I get to see on social media of people enjoying Doughp across the country. So it's a cool thing. I think I got that first inkling of like, what's it like to see someone excited about what you've built? And I just had to find better economics because making a cake for 8 hours and charging $50 for it was not going to fly. But I had fun, you know, I just knew that I liked it. And that is such a bug. Like once you started a business, like I think any entrepreneur will become a serial entrepreneur if their first business doesn't work out. Cause like, it's just, if you liked that, going back to work for someone else, it's very unappealing.
Yeah. And the majority of entrepreneurs don't succeed at their first business. Some are lucky enough to hit the home run in the beginning, but what I like to tell a lot of the listeners is that just go out and start something, even if it's small, because you need to understand the emotions that are tied to running with a business. Like the business operations itself isn't complicated. It's about like managing individuals and like learning how to negotiate and, you know, waking up and feeling like you're going to take over the world, even though like my first business was an antique store. I was like, I'm going to make millions of dollars selling antiques. and then like,
so stoked on it.
Yeah. Right. And then like 4 hours later in the day, you're like, why am I even doing this? Like it makes no sense. So you need to understand how to manage that roller coaster, because it's so completely different than just working a 9 to 5 where you could be very mindless and kind of robotic like and just check in and check out. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're present literally 24 hours a day. Even when you're laying in bed, you have ideas running through your mind that are just like, okay, how do I make this better? Like I need to call Bobby tomorrow. You know, I need to save in this sector. Like there's so many random things that go on that it's hard to know unless you just open up, become a little vulnerable, know that whatever it is that you're doing, you're gonna suck in the beginning, but with practicing consistency, it will build over time.
Yeah. And not being afraid to ask for help. You know, I think in the beginning, like I went from tech to food. I didn't know anything about packaging food for like, you know, commercial consumption and like what I needed to do for the public. But I was able to find some people, you know, like I went and joined a commercial kitchen and I asked the other people that were working there, you know, what they were doing. And there's just like anything you can do to like drop the ego and ask someone else who's further along than you, do it. Like I still probably have, I'd say 3 of my meetings a week at least are with other entrepreneurs who've reached out to us for help and just giving guidance on what I think they could do at that stage, like, you know, going through ideas of how their business model is looking. And I love that because a lot of people helped me in the beginning. So reaching out for help is great. And getting that experience of like the emotional side you're talking about is so important for people to realize what that will be like and know that it's coming. I guess you going into it a little more prepared. I was crazed when I first quit Doughp and quit Intel and started Doughp. It was like no structure, you know, like I had gone from 10 years working in corporate America where it was like, you show up at this time, around, like, it's not like I had like, oh, you have to clock in at 9, but like you show up in the morning, you go take your coffee break at 9:30 and catch up with a coworker. You have lunch, you have your cookie break at 2 p.m. We used to go across the street to get cookies. And then you leave, you're back on the Caltrain to go home at like 4:00. And then Doughp, it was like, oh my God, like every waking moment was like, there's more I could be doing, and you don't have the resources in the beginning to hire any help. And that part of like it all the time, like, does not stop. I left this seat at 10 p.m. last night and I was back in it at 5:30 this morning, and I was smiling, like I love it, but it's insane. Like we're going through like another really intense time. We're fundraising right now. We're hiring right now. We're growing like crazy, getting into retail. I mean, I'm just like spread so thin, but like, I'm excited, it's all positive growth. And you just have to know that your emotions are so closely tied to the success of the business and the failures. So like when we've gone through hard times, it's like deep, like depressive swings that can happen when you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, is this not going to work out? But the positivity has to be stronger. You have to know that like success is inevitable and you're going to make it through. And even as close as we've ever gotten to like it not working out, like I found a way forward. So I really think if you're doing what you love, like the right resources and the right people and the right stuff comes in when you need it to. You just got to like keep that, be able to keep that positivity up enough. So it's intense. It's intense on your mental health.
It definitely is. It's really profound where the universe really rewards you if you put something out in there. It's just like there's strange coincidences where you meet the right person at the right time, or you just scrape by in the amount of sales that you need to go by. So that's just the strangeness, but also the beauty of entrepreneurship is like, it's this, you're carving out this path, you're carving out your own path, and it's like a dark abyss, but at points there are light at the end of the tunnel, and you do find it. You just have to keep digging and digging and digging and digging. And it is very beautiful.
There's this book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and he has a follow-up called The Surrender Experiment. And it goes into this in pretty great detail. It's one of the first books I read when I got sober. The Untethered Soul, his first one's really about like kind of getting control of your thoughts and like the stream of thoughts that go through, and just kind of a good level setting on like that side of the world. But his book, The Surrender Experiments, like how he applied it in his life, and that idea of like what he was putting out in the world and like doing what he wanted to do. He's trying to open up this like yoga retreat thing, and like the check he needed like showed up in the mail like the day that they were gonna lose the project, and like just all this stuff that is amazing when you're putting the right energy out into the world. And I've seen it with Doughp like time and again. Like an investor literally reaches out when we got our first call from Pier 39 about opening a store there. I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be $60,000 to buy out this space. Like, how am I gonna get $60,000? Boom, like an email in my inbox like the next day from an investor who'd been hearing about Doughp and was wondering if we were looking for funding. I'm like, oh my God, like the universe is just like, hey, what's up? You doing what you love? Here you go. Like hooks you up. It's awesome.
Just trickle on that Salt Bay right there.
Right. It's like, I got you. So that's cool.
So when you went off and left Intel to start Doughp, did you leave Intel because you were unhappy with the situation, or more you were inspired to go off and do something else and you just felt like this profound moment that was like, I have to do this now?
Yeah, the latter. I was just like, I have to do this now. I think I literally said that phone call with my dad, like I have this cookie dough idea. Like if I don't do this, someone else will. And I mean, I think they thought I was insane because I'm like going to quit this safe corporate job. I'm like, it'll be a couple of years before I even make what I was making at Intel again, like salary wise was not in my mindset at all. I was like, I just want to grow a business. It wasn't about how much money I'll be making along the way. I just wanted to be that excited every day, and be building something that was my own, go at my pace. Like I loved being at Intel, but I think there were times where I felt like it's a little out of your control, like you put your heart and soul into something and then they're just like, okay, hey, budget's cut, we're going to move to this now. And you're like, but it was going to be so awesome. Like I've been working on this for 6 months or whatever it is. But I wasn't like unhappy by any means with what I was doing there and the opportunities I got. In fact, like what Doughp for Hope is today is in large part thanks to my time at Intel. My last role was very focused in philanthropy. It was in the diversity and inclusion group. and we were building like a machine learning algorithm to better detect online harassment. We were working with Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation and like lots of this. How could we get nonprofits to be working together on this issue and then have help from Intel on the tech side with the algorithm work? So super cool stuff. And like, I was very energized by that. But when I got the idea for Doughp and, I'd been baking kind of as a part-time vegan when I moved to San Francisco. So it was just this natural stumbling upon that my cookie dough was butter-filled but eggless because I was a shitty vegan and I love butter. And I'm like, this is delicious. Like everyone loves cookie dough. Why are we not able to eat like a whole cup of it? So that hit and I'm like, man, this would be so fun. And it wasn't but a week after that I had like the name down. I had been sitting with a friend, like coming up with all these dough puns. I'm like, I just want to make a really dope dessert company, like somewhere you and I would want to hang out at, that talks like us, more authentic. Like I'm tired of all the girly dessert brands. And she was like, oh my God, like Doughp could have dough in it. We got to do it. And it's been fun. It's been a really fun name. It's a product to make people happy. And the name itself makes people chuckle and laugh and smile. And like, that's part of it. At every step of the way, I'm like, how can I add a little bit? I'm like a Disney movie. I like put in these little jokes and stuff through Doughp marketing that's like for who's going to get it, and if you don't get it, the joke wasn't really for you. So it's perfect for adults and kids alike. And it's been so fun.
Dude, that light bulb moment of finally figuring out a name for your business is, oh my God, there's so much fulfillment and joy from it. For the guest list, I sat around and I used one of my coworkers, that's one of my good friends, as a dartboard, and I probably sent off like 70 different names to her, and every time was just like the most like moot response. And then one day I got home from working at the nightclub and somebody texted me. I was like, hey, can you put me on the guest list tomorrow? And I was like, oh my God, there it is.
How funny. That's awesome. It's a great name and it feels good when it works,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause you feel like without a good name for the business, it doesn't feel like it'll ever work, even though you can always change the name later. But the messaging is so important, whether you want to be like serious or you want to be a little bit quirky or happy or like kind of insinuate some sort of like thinking towards that name. So you're right on par with that.
Extra considerations too for a product like Doughp where, we're CPG, consumer packaged good. I need to think about how is this going to get the message across quickly when we're on shelves, and when we're in a grocery store and you see Doughp and we have legit cookie dough written under it, but like how quickly does the name get across what it is? How fun is it to say, how much will people want to tell someone else that they found it? And I definitely wanted it to be one word. I wanted it to be simpler. We're not some software product that has to be like an 8-word thing. Like I used to laugh at the names. Poor Intel, they have to be so descriptive with a lot of their names of products. And it's like the Intel Core Pro V processor, this, that, the other from this year. You're like, oh my God, what is the name of it? So I think for like a company name, it's just nice to be a little quicker, and it depends on your brand style, but like, having a bit of humor and like wittiness to us was a no-brainer.
No brainer at all. You mentioned that your first business that you opened was down in San Francisco, right? Correct?
Up in Oregon. I was in Oregon when I first got sober and then moved to San Francisco and started Doughp there.
I meant, the first Doughp store was down in San Francisco, correct?
Doughp was born in SF. Yeah. The first day was like 4:20 at Dolores Park in San Francisco. And I took like 100 pounds of cookie dough out to the park with this like cart that I had built for like $500. It was like this cool looking like wooden serving cart. And we sold out in like 3 hours. So that was like day one of Doughp. Was my first day of my sabbatical from Intel. And I was like, let's give this a try. Had 10 weeks to see if it was going to make it. And, it did.
That's a perfect proof of concept, guerrilla marketing tactic. I love that. And
it was like, do people like it? Are they willing to pay this much for it? Are the flavors good? Would anyone even eat this stuff, I guess? So it was your first kind of proving day. And then from there, I like went and applied to a food park in SF and was like, hey, I have a cookie dough company. I'd love to start serving there. And then they wrote back in 2 hours and were like, cookie dough, like, this is incredible. When can you start? I'm like, oh my God, like how to get food license, you have to look up all the, like, oh yeah, of course. Like, can I have 2 weeks, please? So, got everything together, but you got to fake it till you make it, fake it till someone invites you in.
That's the frightening part. There's no manual to entrepreneurship. And Once you become a little bit more experienced, you realize that every single person is just winging it. Like absolutely.
100%.
I had to go to the business license store for my first business like 10 times because I kept messing up on the paperwork. I didn't know who to talk to, and I was like, dude, this is never gonna open. I'm just like about to give up. But like some of these hurdles and and pain points through the entrepreneurial journey is a positive sign because it means that nobody's crossed that barrier yet. So you are like down this path that you are actually constructing.
Yeah. It's fun to learn at each stage. And I like looking back at like those I'm breaking down in tears on the floor moments where like one of mine was like the food license thing. I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to get this figured out. Like they're not going to let it be served the way I need or something. I had to do some water activity testing and make sure that it was safe to serve at room temperature, which luckily it was. But like, I wasn't a food scientist. Like that was all really hard for me. And I was like, so scared that like the whole thing's going to come crashing down if like this step doesn't make it through. And now I'm like, oh, that's nothing compared to like the size of the issues we work on now, but it all feels so real at every stage, you know, like everything you go through. So that same advice of like reaching out for help is the best thing I could tell anybody.
So what inspired you to make the move out to Vegas? Vegas is becoming like a mecca for foodies. Obviously there's a great product market fit there that no one had fulfilled. What did you see in Vegas, and how has it turned out for you out here so far?
Yeah. Personally, it's turned out awesome. So I can shed light on that. Like my husband and I love it here. We were in San Francisco living in a place like 1/4 the size, like a tiny ass apartment for like 2.5 times the cost for rent versus mortgage. You know, we were able to get a home out here and have so much space. And it's really nice to have that. We have 2 cats. So we had 2 cats in a tiny apartment. Like that's 2 litter boxes. I don't need to give you more detail than that, but it was a nightmare. And we got out like November of 19, we moved out here full time. And thank goodness, because 2020, we were talking to friends that were still in that high rise. And it's like, you were locked in your apartment, you know, all the amenities of the apartment buildings were closed down for COVID. And so you're like your whole life working every day with your partner in the same 400 square foot, 500 square foot apartment. We dodged a bullet there being out here. But for the company, I chose Vegas. So I started the business with this idea around brand awareness. Like I just knew that I needed to figure out how to get as many people as possible to like not only try this product, but come through and like get an experience with it where it would stick in your mind, you know, and something that really sticks with people is vacations and where you go as a tourist. And so in San Francisco, we opened up on Pier 39. I had gone there as a child. You know, I grew up in Sacramento. So going to Pier 39 was ingrained in my memory. And I remember being at Bubba Gump Shrimp and like, you know, all those little things that stick as a kid. So I thought this is a great opportunity to like get exposure to a ton of people. And as I mentioned on Shark Tank, like we were seeing 20,000 customers each month in the summers at the pier. 98% new customers every month. So it was just massive like exposure on an international stage too. You know, it's not just global tourists there, but getting our name known internationally. We're getting messages of people constantly in like New Zealand and Dubai and like asking if they could franchise, you know, and take it back to where they were from. So that was a really like, I think wise decision in the beginning of the company to say like, it's a treat, it's an indulgence, it's a fun, I mean, now we ship D2C, so people have made it more of a everyday product, but when we're serving it in cones and with toppings and all this, it was certainly like a nice vacation experience, indulgence. So when I wanted to look for the next location, Vegas was like a no-brainer on it being a tourist spot. But, you know, I could have done Times Square or even tried to stay in California and done like Santa Monica Pier or something like that. But I chose Vegas because we had just launched our Doughp for Hope initiative. So the focus around mental health and addiction recovery. And I thought, if I'm going to make a booze-free cookie dough bar, like where better to do it than Vegas and like put it right on the strip. So we have like alcohol bottles that were lining the top, like it looked like a bar back, but they were filled with candy and like toppings and stuff. And, you know, our dough tenders were there to like mix up your perfect flavor. So kind of like a mixologist. It was like we had the blonde dough and all the toppings and you could have it customized to your liking. Kind of like Cold Stone for cookie dough. So yeah, I just thought Vegas would be a great place to do this. And, you know, the fun and the neon, like we always had these neon signs, like you can see one behind me for people to take pictures in front of, spoon liquor or like I licked the spoon in Vegas, like that kind of stuff. So, just had a ton of fun thinking of what this would be like in Las Vegas. And little did I know, there's actually like a pretty decent sized movement around sobriety and addiction recovery here, because of the nightlife and kind of the fallout that can come from being pulled into that so deeply. And just for general tourists too, I just thought it was fun to like have this message of sobriety like right in their face as they're, probably having like, one too many drinks or feeling bad about it the next day. And it's like, there's hope for you, you don't have to keep doing this. And maybe one person would read the story that we had. We had, of course, like my story on the wall, but then also like the Doughp for Hope voting area. We would let people vote for which nonprofit they'd like the proceeds for that scoop to go to. So just different ways to like interact with our mission in a place where it's a interesting conversation topic.
That's so funny. That's a perfect niche for Vegas because people like that kind of like in their face product, and especially in Vegas where they're handing out like these like nude cards and all these things that people don't want. But if you're putting some sweets in your face and saying like, hey, I'm a sober person, people will probably find a lot of like lighthearted joy in that because that's just how Vegas is.
It's a nice thing. It's kind of like the benefit I feel and why I love being able to share my sobriety. Someone reaches out going, oh, me too, and like, oh, I'm also sober, or I'm also going through this, or my husband, my wife, my daughter, my uncle, whatever it may be, like someone's affected by it. And we'd find those conversations constantly in the store, someone reading it and then going, oh, this is so cool. Like I'm sober too. We're actually celebrating my sober birthday, or like, or all these different things, people getting to share how it impacted them. So it was really fun. With the pandemic, we, had to shut down the store. We had already chosen to shut down our San Francisco operation, though no fault of Pier 39. It was just a retail operation for our business was difficult, and San Francisco costs were crazy. So we had already shut that down, and we started focusing on e-commerce in late 2019. My husband joined the business, which was like the best decision ever. Trying to do this alone. I'm not as great on finance and ops as I am on, sales and marketing. So brought him in and he's like, 2020 needs to be our year of focus. We've closed this one store, we have this one, but we need to get another channel to be like big enough to help the business be a bit more balanced. We decided e-commerce was like the right way to go. And just from November of 19, we were doing like 30 boxes a month to April of 2020, shipping 3,000 boxes a week. It was like just astronomical growth where when we were forced to close down the storefront and solve for, the 3-month kind of quarantine, like how much more effective we were at growing this online business when we weren't trying to like keep this struggling store going because like the foot traffic reopened and it was already dying, late February, all the conventions were getting canceled mid-March, until mid-March, it was just, we were down already 82% year over year. So when we were to reopen, it was a business decision to say, it's going to make the most sense for us to focus on what's working and go into online and let the mission like live on through all the awesomeness that is like email, I don't even want to call it email marketing because like it's email communication with our customers. Like we share Mental Health Monday emails. Like we try to keep it, pretty personal with like me and my story and what we're doing with She Recovers, our nonprofit beneficiary. So I just think it's a neat twist where I really loved all those in-person experiences we got. But now with e-commerce, it's like we're actually reaching more people with our message than we were able to through the stores.
Yeah, COVID's been this accelerant that's kind of just kicked down all the faulty structures that we thought were legitimate and turned out that they aren't. And now we're like really fully immersed in this digital economy or the creative economy. So to realize that now you basically have to go full e-commerce, and that on the contrary of how you thought it wouldn't be successful, you're actually reaching much more people like that you can also ship the product. And as you said, like it could be sent in room temperature. That's like such a big addition or positive to the product, because that's something that ice cream has trouble with in some of the competitors.
Yeah. Totally. Man, I was just reading an article the other day on the kind of the ice cream D2C business and like the challenges. It's very challenging shipping something even that does need to stay chilled. Like it's safe at room temperature, but it's not room temperature in a UPS truck. So we ship it from frozen with ice packs so that it shows up kind of refrigerated, just to be safe because it gets so hot out there. I mean, the summer shipping from here is wild. So we are even exploring like dry ice as an option just to make sure through the summer it stays okay. The tarmac here in Vegas at like 120 degrees outside is wild. But yeah, it's certainly a different level of reach, like digital advertising is just an incredible tool. We really started to lean into that to grow this, and it's wild. It is really wild. I can't believe like the level that we're at now with the volume we're able to send is so cool.
I really enjoy your messaging, because there's also something I try to tell everyone on the podcast is like in this digital economy, the consumers evaluate the product based off of their opinion of the CEO or the creator. Like, it's just like, it's so uniquely tied together. Like, I use the Elon Musk example, right? Like when he went on Joe Rogan and smoked weed, the stock fell 10%, even though there was nothing completely different about the product. And we see this with a lot of public markets and private markets as well. As if the consumers like the CEO, or they like the founder, or they like the podcast host, they're going to buy into it because they love the mission, and they especially love the journey, and the stories is what really sells. And if you're very authentic, then the consumers that are mostly digitally native, they can see that, and they understand what you're trying to preach, rather than 20 or 30 years ago, where a lot of the owners were generally businessmen, and they would kind of hide behind the business, and they would try to like nickel and dime their customers. But now we're upfront and personal with these people, and they could tap into you like on different podcasts that you've been going on, and they can understand and see like, oh, Kelsey's been preaching the same message on multiple podcasts, so therefore she is authentic person.
Yeah, it's huge. Like, I know some founders that are like, oh, I just kind of want to stay like in the background. I don't know. And I mean, I'm grateful that it is so authentic, that like I'm so happy that I was able to start this because I got sober, and that's like my life mission to like break the stigma around this. But I know for some founders, they're like, I just don't have anything. Like literally they're like, what's my story, or like, what's my pitch, or what's my angle? So, the more authentic you can be, which just means in the decision-making process for you building a business, like make sure you do feel very tied to the why you want to do what you want to do. And that like, purpose over profit, like the most profitable business option versus like what you'd be more passionate about. Like maybe you would find that you'd make it more profitable or grow it because you're so passionate, versus like how that super profitable option may pan out if you're not loving it, if you don't have that why behind it. So I'm definitely very, the face of the brand and whatnot. And I've had discussions about that where you're like, if you look down the road being like acquired one day or purchased one day, like, is it going to be bad that like Kelsey's so the face of the brand? But in many ways, it's like why you'd be purchased, because they want to have a product in their portfolio that has this great founder story and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of, a lot of power in doing something and doing it for the right reasons, and customers like sniff it out. They know when it's legit and they know when it's authentic, and you really can touch lives. Like some of the messages I get, it's like really cool to see that what we're doing is so well received and like so needed. And it's so much more than cookie dough.
Exactly. It's because there's a quote that I've been running with, and I say that purpose is how you interpret your journey, but success is how others interpret your journey. And so it's like when you're on this mission, you know exactly where you need to be, and you know how you're thinking because you're in your head. But everyone else interprets you so much differently. So it's like you kind of have to just stay in your lane and keep pushing forward. And then you get these cool messages of like, oh, you inspired me to quit drinking, or like you inspired me to go start a business. And it's like all these different trickle effects that happen from your messaging and your story is what makes it much more fulfilling than oftentimes even making a profit.
100%. And it makes like the really hard days, the days when you're like, oh my God, like for example, this morning, like I'm like so tired. I had 15 meetings yesterday, like back to back, had lunch at 5 p.m. and like then went to bed at 10 and back here in the morning. But it's like I have literally a folder of emails that I go back to read when I'm like feeling just super stretched or super tired and down. And it's such a big boost, a little reminder of why you're doing it and like why it's worth going another day. Cause I might have one more person reach out saying that she wants to get sober and that she's looking for resources, how can I help? And like, or another mother who just lost her son to addiction and is moved by my story and my openness, sharing what I'm doing. Like, no, there's no challenge that's great enough to stop me from wanting to do that another day.
So where does Shark Tank come in during this journey, and what kind of impact did it have on you personally and your business?
Yeah, so Shark Tank was filmed in September of 2018, and it was like the day before my 3-year sobriety anniversary. So it was another universe thing of like this lining up. They told me the date I was filming, and I was like, really? Like that day? That's like right when I'm going to be 3 years. So I thought that was super cool. I mean, I went through an open casting call. I sat on a curb, like gave my pitch. I don't know anyone in show business. I don't know anyone at Shark Tank. There's, kind of this like buzz that people are like, oh, you have to know someone to get in or something. And I'm like, I was literally in a room of like 500 strangers, like listening to the executive director give tips on what you're going to do for your pitch. And like, we all like one by one after a few hours, like get in there to do our thing. But yeah, it worked. I got a call back and then another one, like video submissions and everything. It's a crazy ordeal to get through that. But yeah, she just said, not only did they love the product, but that we were doing it different. We had a compelling story. It is TV at the end of the day. So back to the point about having a why you're doing it or what your story is to getting there. It's very impactful these days. Like consumers want to know that kind of stuff. So got on the show, and filming was really nuts. I had prepared like crazy for it. I think I got like something like 3 weeks notice before it was going to film. So like you get a 3-week notice that like, hey, you're going to be filmed for the show. No promises that you'll be on. Like they film more than they will air. I think they film like 150 and like 120 will air or something. So like poor 30 people who go through this and then don't make it on the show, because you can never talk about it publicly if it doesn't air. So I go down, it's like down in LA, have a U-Haul with like my set props and everything. Like we built this like 8-foot, like 8x10 or something wall that said legit cookie dough on it. Just all out, it was like, think about school project days. Like I was that girl that had like, I had like a t-shirt. I had to do a dinosaur presentation in school. And so my mom helped me make like t-shirts with the dinosaur on it and stuff to share all about the whatever his name is, dinosaur that I don't even know now. But I've always been like that, just like an over the top, like how can I make this so perfect? So I went like full on, like I was like a set director coming up with what I wanted it to look like. And then, the day of filming, they have you sitting in like a trailer for like a couple of hours before it's going to happen. And like kind of all the other entrepreneurs are there, but half the people are so nervous they're not talking to anyone because they're going to throw up. And then the other half are like overly chatty, and you just like want to take a reprieve in your trailer alone. But yeah, then I went up. I'm a solo founder, so it was just me, little Kelsey by herself, like standing before those doors open. And I've shared this on other podcasts, but I was literally like, that is the moment I really thought I was going to pee my pants. Like I was for sure. I have no ways to describe, like that is a physical feeling that's like, it's going to happen and there's nothing you can do about it. Cause I was just so nervous. And then like they're counting down from 100 and then the doors finally open and it's like, you have to walk out and hit your mark. And all my nerves just went away. I was like so calm and like at peace all of a sudden. And just like, I know this is my life. Like I know my numbers front, back in Spanish. Like I flashcarded it like crazy to study. So I was not concerned about getting caught off guard with anything. And I'm just like, let's freaking do this. Let's show them what I love and like what I know this can be. And nailed my pitch, like didn't mess up on anything. Loved it. It's fun because that's like what's publicly available on YouTube. So I'm like, thank God that part went like without a hitch. And yeah, and then went through it. It was like, I was in there for an hour and 15 minutes. But the episode itself, it's only like 6 minutes that gets aired. So It's crazy what else happens. And now, it's been a couple years since it filmed. So it's like, I start to lose bits of what else did happen in there. It's like, I don't have a videographic memory to know it all, but yeah, they just chopped it down to 6 minutes. And it was a really, really crazy experience. Very like emotionally jarring. I took a mental health day the next day. We have mental health days in the company, like a no questions asked day off if you need it. And I was like, guys, I need a day. Cause it was just like emotional roller coaster, you just need to reset.
Wow. I like that you have that installed into your business. I know you unfortunately didn't get a deal, but did that, I guess, national televised attention bring in potential investors that helped propel the business forward?
Yeah, I mean, specifically after it aired the very first time, we had like 120 investors reach out and
Wow.
interested franchisees, people who were like, I want to open a dope store. So that was great. The customer side is awesome and it just keeps going. So it's really cool now to be so focused on e-commerce because we have our site very set up to help, capture web traffic and make sure that we've got like the best chance at closing a sale from any visitors. And we just re-aired last night. And so it's like, you watch the chart and then it's like, oh crap, I think Shark Tank went because it's like a huge spike. It re-airs about every month and a half or so for us somehow, on different, I think they sell the show to different networks. Sometimes I think it airs on some different reruns and whatnot. And then it's available on Hulu. So of course there's like always people that can find it if they're binging Shark Tank episodes, but these spikes are rerunning in some primetime spots, which is awesome.
That is amazing. When you're in there negotiating with them, did you feel this like presence of, I don't know, wealth or like power, prestige when you were sitting there in front of them, or were they very casual and like it just seemed like they were just another person just having a conversation with you?
Yeah, it is a bit out of body because like you kind of remove from your head that like this is Mark Cuban talking to me, telling me that like everything about this is an amazing investment and like everything you've done is awesome, and you're just like what? Like Robert Herjavec said, your top 10 entrepreneurs who have ever walked through these doors. And like, I was like, literally like clutched my chest and was like, I can't wait to tell my parents that like, they're going to be so proud that you just said that about me. So I had a few like, whoa moments when some of that comes out of their mouth where you're like, oh, that's so cool. And when they had, comments to say about it not being healthy, like kind of the commentary that led to them going out was that it's not a healthy product. And I'm like, it's dessert. Like, what are we talking about? I don't get it. I of course didn't say that. I was very like respectful and like talked through, I think Robert said like, how many people would you say like cookie dough? And I was like, I would say a significant amount.
Everybody.
Like a lot of people, like it's like a unicorn when you find someone who's like, oh, I don't really like cookie dough, we're a pretty like mass appeal product. So that was just, a little out of body, but otherwise just like talking to anybody, I'd done keynotes when I was at Intel. I did a keynote in front of 4,000 people. And those were like, that's like live 4,000 people sitting in a giant convention center. And I think that was like slightly more nerve wracking having all of those people like right there versus like, these are really powerful people, but I'm really powerful. I just went into it thinking like, I also kick ass and like, they'd be lucky to have some of Doughp, and our, the valuation's grown, X times like since that moment, like they would have been lucky to get in when that was an opportunity for them. So it's funny. Like you can get so caught up in your head thinking that they're so awesome. And that means you think you're not. So I think the confidence level like really helps to just go into it being like, it's their chance to get a slice of what you have. And, we're fundraising right now. And I have to keep that in mind that like, we are, we don't need the money. I could keep growing this and have, this be a cash flow business and go steady. I want to grow it very, very fast. So I'd like the investment. It would be great, but it's a cool chance for them to be a part of what's going to be so large. So that's a good like mental shift for entrepreneurs to not always think like, oh, I need it. Like I need these investors. I hope they like me. Like you should find one who loves you and really gets it and is aligned with the mission, and not have to convince someone that they should like you and, convinced of the mission, for example. Like if someone doesn't think that mental health and addiction recovery is a worthy conversation, like this is going to be a hard sell. It's going to be a hard sell. No matter how nice and green their money looks.
Yeah. It really comes down to knowing your worth and really doubling and tripling down on yourself when you have the opportunity. From all of the guests that I've had on, every single person went through that same mental model where it was like they were turned down or they were burned by either their co-founder or an investor. And they were like, you know what, like their opinion, I value, but I know what my worth is. I know where this product is going, and I'm going to continue on with the mission therefore. And every single time always turns out to be successful as long as you just stay consistent and you keep doing it.
Totally. Like think about, I mean, in the tank, for example, they didn't air, but Mr. Wonderful made an offer, but it was like a crazy valuation debate back and forth. You know, he was trying to drop my valuation based on free cash flow. And I'm like, I'm a startup, like doing it just on a multiple free cash flow is silly. We have this little back and forth. And, you know, I really had to stick to my guns and say it's not worth it. Though, sure. I mean, he's done great stuff for like Wicked Good Cupcakes. And like, he's got all these engines that probably could have helped do different things. But you just have to know your worth. And then I got another investor 2 months later, you know, after filming. So, and that was the best decision I could have made, because the show going live without a deal, I think is actually better for the entrepreneur, because there is so much follow-on interest from people who don't think or assume that you have a shark on your table. And many of the deals fall through afterwards. You know, some of them go live on air that you got one, and then due diligence and whatnot happens afterwards. And they're like, actually, you know, never mind. So then you're locked on air looking like you do have a shark on your cap table. And then in real life, you're like, please God, investors, call me. Yeah. So
That is beautiful.
all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, it's been very worthwhile for you. I want to talk a little bit about the product itself, the dopeness that surrounds it. Why, what makes it temperature, I wouldn't say resistant, but more, I guess, just like a better overall consistency than ice cream? And what are kind of the contents that are in it?
Yeah. So it is straight up cookie dough, like you would make at home in your mixer. And this is by R&D for me was approximately 2 hours, because like I already had this recipe. I just like, you know, I'd been making cookies forever, and I had a long time chocolate chip cookie recipe. I'd found a way to make it safe to eat, like I mentioned, through the part-time veganism. So it's straight up like flour, butter, brown sugar, vanilla, flaxseed, baking soda, and then there's salted butter. So that's it. We don't add any preservatives. And then in each of our flavors, it's like chocolate chips or rainbow sprinkles or Oreos and blue dye, because Cookie Monster, and we had to do that. That's like fan favorite flavor. It's awesome and bright blue cookies and cream dough. But we have a ton of fun. You know, it's like kind of living in this land, being natural skewing, that like, you know, what's in the product, it's real ingredients, it's stuff you know, you would use at home. But it's safe to eat, heat treated flour and no eggs. And it's not so far on like you have to hug a tree to eat it. You know, we're kind of in this nice middle ground of like, you want to be responsible, know what you're eating, but you don't need it to be gluten-free and vegan and free of the top 8 allergens. And like, I love sugar. I love butter. It's dessert. I want it to be awesome. And I want it to make me feel good, you know, and I want it to remind me of sitting on that kitchen counter, eating it with my grandma. I want that like emotional nostalgia evoked. And a lot of the ultra healthy, I mean, no shade on any other entrepreneurs that are tapping into what is a very trendy market, but there's like, you know, adaptogenic cookie dough out there now. And I'm like, I just don't need adaptogens in my cookie dough. I'm okay. Like I am okay if I have to get something else. You know, I take my ashwagandha in the morning as a capsule with my smoothie or whatever. And then I'm going to have, you know, I'll be finishing this little cup of Doughp later. So, you know, it's just like life's about balance. And I think Doughp's a really nice place for those that want to just treat yourself and have something good. Like calorie wise, it's not very different by the tablespoon than eating Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So it's got similar makeup there. People sometimes think, oh, cookie dough is like so dense, it must be so bad for you. But if you look at the calories on like our pint of Ride or Die versus a pint of like, you know, Ben & Jerry's like half baked sundae or whatever, they're very comparable. So it's a nice dessert sub, and you can eat it or bake it, which is really fun, or half bake it and enjoy it with ice cream. That I really love. And we just dropped a new product today. Our Doughp drops released today.
Let's
and
go.
Sold out in like 28 minutes. So that was an insane start to my Friday morning. But it's like these kind of like double bite size nuggets that you can eat or bake straight away. So you can drop them on a baking sheet or eat them. It's awesome.
Dude, congratulations. That is amazing. I've from some of the entrepreneurs I've talked with, the days and moments leading up to a new product drop can build a lot of anxiety, because you don't know if it's going to sell out, or like, is it going to hurt your emotions? Like there's so many things surrounding it. So that's amazing.
Totally. Yeah. When the email first sent, I was like, oh my God, we haven't sold one. It's been 2 minutes. What's going on? And it's like, okay, the email is like still sending, you know, like it goes to like 60,000 people. Like it takes a little while to get out, and you sit there and refresh. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh God, they're gone. Okay, it's over. We did it. So it was really cool. Fun morning. And we'll be bringing them back in about 2 weeks. So it was kind of our first test to see like, is anyone interested in this? And The answer was yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to make some more.
I'm definitely gonna have to get on that drop soon. I'm gonna stay aware for it. Like I said, I enjoyed the red velvet one. That was an awesome product. I'm not per se a big sweets person because I have no self control when it comes to sweets. So like if I buy this 16-ounce container, I'm gonna eat it all in one night and probably hate myself the next day. But it's always worth it because as Gary Vee likes to say, nostalgia really does sell, and we see a lot of these products from our childhood coming back into fruition and in the mainstream, like Pokemon cards and a bunch of the old sports cards, cookie dough, Atari's even making its way back. Like,
totally. We did like a nostalgic inception because like cookie dough itself, like you said, is nostalgic. And then in January, our seasonal flavors were a 90s pack. So we did like a Dunkaroos cookie dough with like vanilla frosting, rainbow sprinkles, and the little crackers. And then we did Seriously Good, which was Cookie Crisp in a chocolate milk cereal cookie dough. Delicious. And then we did U Jelly, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So we threw it back to the recess days in the 90s. And like, it was crazy to see the response. People love that stuff, you know, like, for example, we did this, if you know, kind of theme on our Instagram stories. And it was all these 90s things like, do you remember this? And showing those old pictures of it. Crazy. Like it was this massive jump, I think like 130% increase in our story engagements in January because of those. And it's so true. People just love that kind of stuff. My brother doesn't send me anything, but he sends me BuzzFeed articles with 90s things because he's like, oh, remember this? You know, like we love to look back. Like I guess 2020 was freaking hard. So everyone's like, take me back to the 80s, the 90s. Like I'll go anywhere it was sweeter than this. So it's fun stuff to tap into. It's
so funny how nostalgia works. Well, when I got sober, I found myself listening to classic rock music and that was what I listened to before I started drinking. So like my subconscious was like, hey, let's go back to this time before everything was crazy. And now I listen to it a lot more. It's so strange how those kind of so funny. Yeah, those things happen. But we've been going at this for about an hour. I have one final question for you. It's the same question that I asked everybody on the show. And the question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
I mean, Las Vegas has meant new starts, you know, a new start for me. I think like it's a place where I started with one vision that we were going to have this store forever and whatnot. And now it's been a new start into being a great place to have we have our manufacturing and our fulfillment center still here. So it's different than what I thought it was going to be. But yeah, it's a nice, like, it's a fresh start. And we see ourselves staying here, you know, one day when Doughp isn't my only baby and we can have a kid, we'll raise a family here. But yeah, it's a nice place for us now with our business baby and our cats. So we love it.
Perfect for cats. Where do I send all of the listeners and viewers to learn more about you and follow Doughp?
I just love the perfect for cats. It's perfect.
Everyone out here is a cat's owner.
Cats love it.
Yeah, it's great for cats. So not so great for some dogs because it's so hot. But cats are inside forever. So it's a great location for them.
Massive tangent, and then I'll tell you where you can get Doughp. But our cats, like going from San Francisco where it's super humid to Las Vegas, it was crazy how much water they started drinking. Like it's a real change for them that they pick up. We're like, oh my God, we're not used to filling up their water bowl, but for like once a month or something, because they would barely drink any. And then now they get out here and they're just like chugging water. So you can tell it has a real effect like on humans and animals. They like it here. It's always warm. There's like warm sun for them to lay in and everything. The sun was like not warm in San Francisco. It's like, oh, it's sunny and I'm freezing. So they like it here. But yeah, you can find Doughp at doughp.com. And we've been saying it this whole time, but it's DOUGHP. So like dough with a P at the end, doughp.com. And we're at Doughp on Instagram and Facebook and at Eat Doughp on TikTok and Twitter.
Hey, TikTok is making the moves. I'll see a lot more people getting on there. Well,
it's awesome for business. It's very like untapped, you know, like it's not as flooded yet with businesses. So I think like consumers aren't feeling like as quick to swipe away from things if you can do an interesting enough ad or as a business, if you're posting interesting enough organic content, like that algorithm just works for if it's interesting. Like if people are enjoying watching it, more people will see it. And it's so crowded on Instagram and Facebook now that you don't really have that same benefit. Like you can post something great and it seems like it gets to a fraction of your followers. So Yeah, it's a cool platform for us.
Yeah, that's great. I'm great to see. Yeah, with Instagram, the reach is about half of what my followers are, which sucks because they're doing that pay to play model. So there's a lot more open territory in TikTok, and Clubhouse is coming up too. So I've been experimenting in that realm as well.
Love it. I'll have to follow you on Clubhouse.
I'm gonna have to get you. I've started curating a Vegas specific room, and we're talking with different entrepreneurs and industries. We just did podcasting. Then we're gonna do like real estate and crypto. So I'll definitely keep you in the mix for dough-based entrepreneurs.
Specific niche.
Well,
cool.
I appreciate you for coming on here. I love the product, love the nostalgia, love your mission and your sobriety journey, and that you also talk about in the public, because in the city it is really hard for some people to say that they messed up or that they want to make a change and go out against the grain and really actually do make a change in your life. So I really do respect you for that and your mission going forward.
Thank you. I respect you too. Congrats on 3 years. We're on a fun journey together. So it's awesome.
We're out here. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time.